Good morning. Everybody doing okay, huh? Wonderful. The theme this month has been flying to higher and higher spiritual levels, a higher horizon. To many, it is unfortunately a lost horizon because they either don't know it exists or they don't know how to get there. So, what is this higher horizon, this higher level of reality that is so close and yet so far for so many of us? Well, 2 weeks ago we talked about 3 levels of reality in terms of our spiritual growth. Levels that are alluded to in all spiritual teachings and many philosophies too. The first level is that of the mundane, physical, material world. We all know that world. We spend a few decades there learning how to survive in the physical sense. We learn to walk and talk and read and write and work and hopefully to abide by certain exoteric spiritual laws like not stealing, not killing, or otherwise causing harm to others. In some of the Course of Miracles' higher teachings, this material level of reality is termed the level of the camel, if you remember, because this material world is truly a desert in terms of spiritual development. And the camel is an animal that's very adept at negotiating the desert. We go to the second level when we finally say of the first level, of the level of materiality, is this all there is? This is it? We begin to question our programming about what we're supposed to be and all the stuff we're supposed to have. This is termed the level of the lion, because the lion is the king of the jungle, capable of slaying the dragon. The dragon is our ego, that part of us that creates separateness from others, from our surroundings, from the divine, and even in many times it's ourselves too. We separate ourselves from who we really are. When we face the fact that our programming and our egos have been ruining our lives, that we have been virtually stimulus response machines, we slay our ego and our programming, and we free ourselves from a lot of old ideas that create attachments about the way things are supposed to be. And we thus clear out a lot of chaos and suffering in our lives. On the second level, we start seeing the possibilities of oneness, love, forgiveness, joy, peace, and abundance. The third level of spirituality is that of the child, open, enthusiastic, hopeful, and without judgments or prejudices. Babies just take what's out there in. They just look at everything. Can't you just see their great big eyes just looking and trying to figure it all out? At that level, we, like babies, are just seeing our conditioning and our programming for what they really are. We're trying to reanalyze everything on another level. We re-examine everything with brand new eyes. Some ideas we keep and we put back in because they're good, and others we shed because they ultimately cause us a lot of suffering because we are seeing the world in an incorrect way. Thus, on the third level, we start to see the world in a completely different way with a beginner's mind, a child's mind. We begin to see the truth of what is, the eternal wisdom, and not the illusions that we formerly thought were the way things really were. We no longer see the stick on the road as a snake to fear. It's at that third level that we're able to consistently see the world with Christ vision. We start seeing that the world really is in divine order, that we've just been seeing it through a smoky windshield, and that we have now cleaned that windshield and we see true reality. We've seen through a glass darkly, and now we see face to face what reality really is. That there is only one power and one presence in the universe, and that is God, the divine force of all. We start seeing the oneness of all life, the interconnectedness of all things and all people, and we start feeling connected with it all. And we also realize at that point that we are one with this divine force of the universe. We still relate to the first level, the material level, because after all, we're human, or we think we are at least in this incarnation. But at this point, we are in the world, but not of it. As the Bible says, all things are made new. We are made new. We are born again, so to speak. And when we live on this higher level of consciousness, the so-called human or material level transforms into heaven on earth. It's full for us of joy and harmony, health and beauty. Now today I'd like to tell you a story. You know I love stories, but this story exemplifies all of this. I'd also like you to come see the film Wednesday night that is based on this story, which we're going to be showing here at Unity at 6:30 p.m. this Wednesday, at the same time the Course of Miracles usually meets. It'll be shown in the family room. Seeing this film will be like a visual representation of everything I'm talking about, and it'll be something you can hold on to. It's the classic story written by John Hilton called Lost Horizon. How many of you have read that story somewhere along the line? A few of you. Okay, well, you have a great treat in store for you if you come Wednesday evening then. Lost Horizon is about Shangri-La, a utopia found deep in a valley in the snow-capped Himalayan mountains in Tibet. Ice storms, avalanches, freezing cold, and even wars abound outside of this valley, but the conditions in Shangri-La are perfect. The inhabitants are protected from worldly problems, even the raging war that's going on all around them outside. And they live this ideal life in Shangri-La. Everything in Shangri-La is beautiful, refined, and orderly. They had the best of everything, the best books, the best art treasures, and the most modern conveniences. The inhabitants are very evolved, physically, mentally, and emotionally, because they were taught and lived the eternal truths. These people are loving, they are wise, they are accomplished in many, many ways. There's never any worldly competition. All is harmonious because everyone cares about and helps everybody else. Consequently, everybody is happy, well provided for, and peaceful. Beauty, abundance, health, and longevity are the norm. And their teacher, the High Lama, who's kind of a modern Dalai Lama, was respected and appreciated for his wisdom, his teachings, and his being. Shangri-La is, of course, a metaphor. It is a state of consciousness, that third state of spirituality. It is truly a utopia, a heaven on earth. It represents the Himalayas of our soul, that higher state of consciousness. In the movie, it takes a guide to actually get people there. And we may need a guide to show us the way. Maybe first of all, to show us that this state even exists. The guide may be in the form of a person, a class, a book, or a spiritual group. Many of you have already found a guide that led the way to an appreciation of something more than just the material, mundane, physical existence. That's probably what led you to Unity. That's what we're all about here. You discovered the difference between the exoteric religion and dogma and esoteric spirituality, which is about being the truth and not just following some outward rules. When you are the truth, you don't need to know the rules because you would never, ever do anything that would break one or hurt somebody else. The story Lost Horizon clearly shows us that third level of reality in the form of the physical place, Shangri-La. And it shows how fulfilling it is to live in that place, our inner Shangri-La. Spiritual teachings help us be happier, freer, and more fulfilled. They're not to bind us somehow and make us feel like sinners and guilty. Jesus Christ clearly said, I have come that ye may have life and have it more abundantly. All true spiritual teachers have said that. We weren't meant to suffer. We were all meant to live in Shangri-La. Now, the story Lost Horizon is about a small group of travelers whose plane crashes in the Himalayan mountains in Tibet. It's like the pilot in the book, The Little Prince, which you know I love. He crashes in the desert. The plane in both cases represent our lives, which don't work anymore. We crash. We're in a desert. We all know what it's like when we have a crash. And we are grateful at those times for any help we can get. After the crash in Lost Horizon, a team of Tibetans went to the plane, helped the survivors, and led them to the safety of the place, Shangri-La. The passengers certainly needed a guide to negotiate those very narrow mountain passes, because only those who had been to Shangri-La were able to find and negotiate the path. We sometimes find that this is the case when we're trying to fly to a higher level of consciousness. We need guides in the form of those who have already been there. The passengers, upon arriving in Shangri-La, were each like different parts of our psyches. There was Conway, the leader, who recognized Shangri-La for exactly what it was, the ideal place or state. He recognized the High Lama as the epitome of wisdom and the people as highly enlightened individuals. Many of you are like Conway. You recognize the higher level of spirituality. But then there was Conway's brother, who was a doubting Thomas. He considered the High Lama to be a fake, and he thought the inhabitants were totally naive to believe him or any of what he taught. Many of us go through a doubting Thomas phase of our spiritual growth where we lose faith that a higher reality even exists. We succumb at times to the material plane, and we really believe that the physical level of reality is the only one. Then there is Barnard, who just saw Shangri-La as a place to exploit for its riches and gold. The people were so generous that they gave him all the gold that he wanted. And what he wanted was to mine the place of all its riches. He represents the part of us that wants to mine others and the world in terms of how we can use them to meet our physical, emotional, or intellectual needs. We don't see the nice boss or loving people for what they are. We see them as gullible and easy to manipulate. In short, we see everything in terms of what they can do for us. And we figure out ways, maybe even unconsciously, to do, say, or be what it takes to get them to give us what we want. Psychology terms this as our narcissistic stage, seeing everyone and everything in terms of ourselves, what they can do for us. We developmentally are supposed to outgrow that stage at about age 3 or 4. Then there's Miss Brinklow. I love Miss Brinklow. She thought the inhabitants were just total heathens because they weren't Christian. She was horrified by all those unclothed statues around. They had all these Greek statues. She represents the part of us that cannot get beyond our programming in certain cases. We just don't accept life for what it is, like a child. We overlay our programming on everything and then deem it good or bad or right or wrong or acceptable or unacceptable according to our conditioning. And then we usually suffer because of it. Miss Brinklow certainly didn't enjoy the art in Shangri-La. Our Miss Brinklow parts might be in operation when we deem a whole country of people as wrong and put our country forever in debt over a war with them. Peace negotiations and creative attempts at unity might be far more beneficial to everyone, especially us. Now, to make a long story short, what happens in the story Lost Horizon is that Conway's brother convinces him that he's bought a bill of goods, that he's naive to believe what the High Lama told him about Shangri-La. For example, the High Lama says that his people live in perfect health to be several hundred years old, but Conway's brother doesn't believe it. He is convinced that the whole thing is a hoax, can't possibly be true. He mostly bases his skeptical views on what a very young and beautiful little Manchu girl tells him. The little Manchu girl falls in love with Conway's brother, you see, and tells him he shouldn't believe in Shangri-La. She wants to leave with him. She's never known anything but Shangri-La, and she's very curious about the outside world. So she tells him, oh, none of that is true. You need to leave and take me with you. Finally, Conway, his brother, and the little Manchu girl do leave Shangri-La, not having any idea that they have just left utopia. They think that this spiritual state can't possibly be true. When they are a few miles away, out of the protection of the valley and lost in the Himalayan snows forever, too far to find their way back without guides, Conway's brother turns around to check on the little Manchu girl who's walking behind him. And when he sees her, do y'all remember, those of you who read the story? What does he see? He sees her, to his horror, as an old 140-year-old woman. You see, in Shangri-La, good health and longevity are a fact of life. Once out of Shangri-La, or this state of consciousness, all the worldly restrictions and suffering set in. At that point, Conway and his brother realized that everything they had seen in Shangri-La was true. She lost it all as soon as she left the state of consciousness. In the epilogue of the book, we learn that Conway apparently spent years later trying to find his way back. Conway's experience, of course, is that of many of us. Even if we know that there's a higher level of reality, we are often influenced by other people and other situations, and we lose that state. Then one day, something happens and we realize what we lost. For Conway and his doubting Thomas brother, it was seeing that 20-something little Manchu girl age over 120 years after leaving Shangri-La. When she left health, longevity, peace, beauty, and abundance. We often miss that state of consciousness too. Maybe what wakes us up is reading something that a scientist has written about quantum physics and the oneness of all life. Maybe for us it's the clear sight that we gain in meditation and prayer. Maybe it's when we find ourselves with others who have verified it for themselves, or in the presence of someone like the Dalai Lama in whose eyes we look and we just know. Conway had recognized Shangri-La, or this higher state, but he lost it because he was still living dualistically. He still wasn't permanently fixed or committed to that higher level of reality. So when the strong winds of doubt were presented to him, he succumbed. It is sometimes hard with our societal programming to believe that it is possible. I love what Joel Goldsmith says about this, and I quote, "Life is not found in the physical realm. Neither is infinite supply found in the physical realm, nor the continuous sense of joy or peace or dominion. Therefore, until we rise above this physical sense of existence, we cannot find the eternal or immortal good that we are seeking. There is that which is invisible to the material sense, even invisible to the intellect, but tangible and real to those of inner vision and spiritual consciousness. It is called the Christ, the presence, the spirit within, and by many other terms in many other teachings: Krishna consciousness, Buddha consciousness, the Tao, the divine. And that's when this Christ-like consciousness is born in us, in that humble manger of our material existence, and it creates of our lives the perfection that is possible. A true Shangri-La in us, our inner Shangri-La. That state is invisible to the intellect, but very real. And it transforms the physical existence into something far, far greater than materiality. It transforms our lives into the loveliness that Conway found in Shangri-La. As it says in Revelations 21, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband." This is talking about a new heaven and a new earth within us. New thoughts, new feelings, a new past, a new present. The old way of looking at things can pass away. There can be a new past, a new present, and a new future. This is not just a figure of speech. This is a reality for you and for me, a true Shangri-La, a better, more full, complete, happier, more peaceful life full of joy and love. And it is all within us right this minute. Jesus Christ said that the kingdom of heaven is within, the New Jerusalem. Shangri-La is a more modern metaphor than the New Jerusalem, of course, but it's the same thing, and it is within us. We need only wake up and see it. There's an important term in Zen Buddhism, dana prajna paramita, which means to cross over or to reach the other shore. Life can be seen as all about crossing a river to the other shore, called nirvana, enlightenment, the New Jerusalem, the kingdom of heaven, Shangri-La. It doesn't matter, but it has all the characteristics of the physical Shangri-La in the book Lost Horizon. Everything in Shangri-La is beautiful, tasteful, subtle, happy, harmonious, safe, free from negativity, wise, warm, and comfortable. There is health, purity, acceptance, moderation, tolerance, and unconditional love. The inhabitants see these qualities in themselves and others. When they greet each other, they say, "Namaste," which means, "I salute the God within you." Unfortunately, the higher can't be seen by the lower, so a certain amount of preparation is necessary to recognize it. Unto him that hath, it shall be given, the Bible says. We must do our part. And that's why we meditate, pray, study, and spend time with the Sangha, or the brotherhood of others on our spiritual path. It helps us clean our spiritual windshield so that we no longer see distortions and illusions, but clear reality exactly as it is. The wonderful thing is that our inner Shangri-La is ultimately just one little decision away. Just ask God to help you see the world differently, clearly, with Christ's vision, and then you will see everything and everyone differently, especially yourself, your divine self. You will see that. You will see the love and the perfection that resides in you and everyone else. This is your natural state, and the state to which, like Conway and Lost Horizon, you want to return. And with that little willingness, as it says in the Course of Miracles, you will be able to. Please consider coming to see this spiritually uplifting film, Lost Horizon, this Wednesday at 6:30, and join others on your spiritual path. It's free, it's easy, it's comfortable, and it's a concrete image of your inner Shangri-La, that higher state of reality that once seen and verified will be your forever home. Amen.